Good evening, students, and welcome to another edition of our flipped classroom. Tonight we'll be talking about the French Revolution specifically. I'll be giving you an overview of the events that took place, and what I'd like to do tomorrow in class is take these events and some of the thinking of the French people and compare and contrast that with those in the United States during the American Revolution. So let's go ahead and begin our discussion, and it all begins with finances, money. This is the real root of the issue that we had in France. You see, the king was living an extremely lavish life. He was having massive parties. He and his wife were in these beautiful clothes, expensive clothing. The queen would spend hours getting her hair done in these massive, fancy hairdos. And meanwhile, the people are starving. There is very little bread. There's very little anything. And one of the main reasons for this is the lavish lifestyle, but also the fact that the French were sending so much money to the United States to help them in their endeavors. You see, the French never have liked the English. It's only been very recently that they've been on the same team. But for most of history, the French and the English did not like each other. So by sending money to the American people, they were in turn helping defeat England, or they were giving the Americans the power to defeat England. And of course, an enemy of my enemy is my friend. That was the theme of France at the time. Well, after a while, the people are going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired and hungry. And they're going to take some action. Now, there were two important raids or two important movements that these people made. One was on the Palace of Versailles itself, the living place of the king and queen, and the other was on the Bastille. The point of going to the Bastille was to get guns and gunpowder and other ammunitions so that they could combat the army, and the reason to go to the palace was to hopefully apprehend the king and queen and bring them into submission in Paris, which they were successful in. Once the king and queen were brought in, you had a man who stepped to the forefront and said, "Listen, my main goal is equality for all of France. That's my desire." His name is none other than Robespierre Maximilien. He will then take control and plunge France into one of the scariest times in history. It's known as the Reign of Terror. There were people having their heads cut off left and right by the guillotine, an invention by Sir Guillotine himself. Is named after his namesake. And eventually this will go so far that they will kill the king by this and the queen. Once this has been done, there is absolutely no power in control. The leadership for years has been this monarchy, this absolute monarchy, and now they are both dead. Well, Robespierre Maximilien will take France on a course that it was terrifying, which is why it was called the Reign of Terror. It will eventually get so bad that even he will die by this. By the guillotine. Once he is dead, the country realizes it is in such dire straits that it looks for anybody to come back to being like a monarchy. Anybody. And one short man with a massive head of knowledge, both militarily and leadership-wise, will be Napoleon. He'll be the one to come and bring the French out of this revolution, much like Hitler brought Germany out of its dredges of World War I, and they will set them on a higher place, and in fact, Napoleon will do much to take over most of Europe. My point here is leadership is everything. I've been talking about this in a master's class I've been taking, but you have the rise and fall of many things on the back of leadership. If it's successful, if it cares for the people, if it's accountable to the people, both its lifestyle and theirs, there's a chance of success. If it's not, if there's a great separation, if there's a lack of service in there, you will have failure. And tomorrow I'm looking forward to having good class discussion on how was this French Revolution similar to the American Revolution and how was it different. So go ahead and bring your notes and your ideas tomorrow to class. I'm looking forward to a good time. Have a great evening.